We have it in. Okay, so here's what happens, my friends. I don't know if you know this, but we mentioned it in a Rashi, I think, in the Chumash beforehand, that the Jewish people did not circumcise themselves while they were in the desert. So they were for 40 years in the desert. And believe it or not, we're going to see that in today's Navi, in the book of Yeshua, in chapter 5, that circumcision was not done during the 40 years they were in Egypt. It was only done by one tribe, and you can guess who that tribe is. The tribe was the tribe of Levi. Only the tribe of Levi continued to circumcise their sons in the desert. Why did they not circumcise their sons? So whoever left Mitzrayim left circumcised as they left, but as we know, all the adults, whoever was part of the army, which means they're already old enough to be part of the army, the battalion, they all died while they were in the desert. Besides for, I guess, two people, besides Yeshua still around, and Kalev, but otherwise everybody else is dead, passed away. Who's left? All the kids that were born. There were people that were born in the desert for 40 years. And for those 40 years, Rashi is going to tell us they didn't circumcise themselves. Why not? So one reason, Rashi is going to give us two reasons. One reason Rashi says is that they simply did not know when Hashem was going to tell them to travel. It could be that in 1 hour, it could be they circumcised their son. Imagine an 8-year-old baby being circumcised, and they circumcise their child, and all of a sudden they get the commandment. The cloud starts to travel, and the ark starts to travel, and the trumpets are blowing like we went in the Chumash, and the formation begins, and you have an 8-year-old baby who's just been circumcised, and therefore it was very dangerous to do it. And they did not circumcise the children while they were in Mitzrayim, in the desert. I mean, another reason is something interesting about a wind. I'm not sure how it works, but they believe in one of the winds that there was a strong wind, and that wind was considered the wind of healing. And while they were in the desert, that wind did not blow. Okay, so because they didn't have that wind of healing, and they didn't feel comfortable and safe doing the bris, and therefore they waited until they got to Eretz Yisrael, and only there did they do the bris. We'll see why did they have to do the bris now. It's because if you remember in yesterday's Navi, we learned the other day that it was the 10th day of Nisan, and everybody knows what happens on the 14th day of Nisan. We eat the Pesach sacrifice, and you're not allowed to eat the Pesach sacrifice, it says in the Torah, unless you're circumcised. Nobody who's uncircumcised can attend the Pesach sacrifice that the Jews would bring. So they need to all get the bris, and also to conquer Israel. There's a deal, Rashi says, that Hashem says to Avram, your children should keep my commandments, my covenant, and I will keep my promise to give you Eretz Yisrael. So therefore the Jews had to keep their side of the deal, to have a bris before they went into Eretz Yisrael. Let's see it inside. When all the kings of the Amorites heard the amazing story in yesterday's Navi, Asher Be'ever HaYarden, that was on the other side of the Jordan River, Yama, on the west of the side of westward, right, the western side of the Jordan River, and all the Canaanite kings heard this story. Asher Al Hayam, Asher Al Hayam, Asher Hoivish Hashem Esmei HaYarden, that the unbelievable, crazy miracles that happened on the Jordan River, that the water dried up in Pnei Bnei Yisrael, because for the Jewish people, Ad Avram, until they all crossed over, they couldn't believe it. They hear the story, the people are coming and the rivers are drying up. Yamas Levavam, and their hearts melted. And they had no more spirit because of the Jewish people. They were completely and utterly drained, I guess, mentally, emotionally. There was no, that was it. Nobody is going to start up with the Jewish people. They are very scared and they're very afraid. Okay, they hear this crazy, amazing story. So that's how the Navi starts off. The Jews are in a very good position. And I saw one of the commentaries, they now feel safe enough to finally do a bris milah because no one's going to start up with them. So Be'esa, he at that time, it's one of the commentaries that said, Amar Hashem al Yeshua, so God says to Yeshua, they're in Gilgal. Remember, they crossed over the Jordan River, and then now they had their first night there, and then Hashem tells them, Ase lecha charvois tzurim, make for yourselves sharp knives, get the sharp knives ready. Shuv moil es bnei Yisrael shenis, and for a second time, circumcise all the Jewish people. So there's going to be a bris. You're going to have 40-year-old people right, who were born the year after they left Egypt, 40-year-old men, 39, 38, everybody who wasn't circumcised besides from the tribe of Levi, that that they did circumcise, everyone else needs to be circumcised. And Rashi says that actually there was a huge circumcision party event, or not a party, whatever. There was a huge right before they left Egypt. Right before they left. Remember, I think we were talking about in one of our classes, one of the sins that the Jewish people did in Egypt, they stopped doing bris milah, stopped doing circumcision. Right before they left, they needed a merit, they needed a miracle, and they all circumcised themselves. And during the 40 years they were in the desert, nobody circumcised besides the tribe of Levi. And now there's going to be a major event of circumcision happening at this time. Hashem commands him to circumcise all the Jewish people, right? I don't know if you guys ever knew the story. This is a fascinating story. So Yeshua went and he made sharp knives. And he circumcised the children El Givas Ha'arlois, to the hill of the foreskins. There were so many foreskins over there that they had a hill of foreskins hanging out. You can make some good jokes, I guess, in the mohel jokes that they have and the stuff. But they had a mountain of foreskins from all the maybe hundreds of thousands of thousands or tens of thousands. I don't know how many there were who needed a brizanya, who needed a bris milah at that time. And this is the reason why Joshua circumcised all the people who left Mitzrayim. Because all the men that were part of the battalions that were listed in army duty, right? They were whatever we said, it was 20 and up, whatever the age was, everybody passed away. They were all part of the people who freaked out and didn't want to go up to Israel by the sin of the spies. And they all died. All those people are gone. Because all the people who left Egypt had been pre-circumcised before they left. Everybody left that night, even though they didn't circumcise while they were in Egypt. Before they left, everybody had a bris. All the nation that was then born in those 40 years after they left Egypt and they went into the desert, they did not circumcise themselves. And Rashi here explains that there was no north wind had blown. And for some reason, I don't know how it works, but north wind will heal. And there was no north wind and they couldn't do a bris milah for all these years. So all these new kids that were born during the period of the desert, they only to be circumcised. Because for 40 years, the Jewish people traveled in the desert. Because the whole nation, why would the Jewish people hang out for 40 years in the desert? Because those 40 years, all the people that were originally part of the battalions that were of age to be of army service, that were part of the list, they all died because they didn't listen to the voice of Hashem. Because God has swore that you will not see the land, all those adults. The land that God promised to give to your forefathers. Eretz Avos land flowing with milk and honey, you're not going to get it, Hashem promised. And their children who were raised up by them instead. Yeshua, those were the kids that Yeshua now circumcised. Because they were uncircumcised. Because they didn't circumcise them while they were traveling the 40 years in the desert. And it was when Yeshua finished circumcising everybody finished being circumcised. They sat down and they remained in their places, didn't move until they recovered. So they're not going to move on until they recover from their wounds, from their bris, in order to besiege the city at that time. And we'll continue the story to the Navi in tomorrow's class. Any questions or comments?